Thank you for viewing this video. We would like to start off by giving a quick thank you to our annual sponsors. Our gold level sponsors, Geronimo Properties, Transin, Northmark, AEI, May Property Management, and Mansar. Our silver level sponsor, St. James Real Estate Advisors. We would also like to mention our charitable partner for 2023, New View Communities, a CDC organization promoting affordable housing in central Massachusetts. To find out how you can become a sponsor of the New England CCIM chapter or to learn more about New View Communities, please visit our websites. There are links in the video description below. Greetings on behalf of the New England CCIM chapter. I'm Michael Chase, immediate past president and chapter treasurer for 2023. Today is the third installment for 2023 in our CRE expert series, and we are very pleased to be joined by Pete Harrington, a partner at Malone Commercial Brokers. Pete, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to speak with us today. Before we dive into today's topic, how about a quick introduction? Would you mind sharing a bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Pete Harrington. I am a commercial broker partner with Malone Commercial Brokers in Portland, Maine. This is my 32nd year in commercial real estate. I live in Portland. I have two wife and two boys. They're both in college. One's in Taiwan, one's in Colorado. I focus in greater Portland area mostly. I don't go too much further north of Falmouth, out to Westbrook, down to Scarborough area. That's sort of my area of focus.
We were talking a bit earlier. You mentioned that you do a regular report for MEREDA on the retail market there in Portland. Could you tell us a little bit about what your current takeaways are and what's going on with retail in Portland?
You know, I've done it probably 10 to 12 times. And what I would say about retail sector is it's one of the more healthiest in commercial real estate. You know, bricks and mortar was said to be on the way out, you know, with the onslaught of online shopping, and then with the pandemic as well, we find that to absolutely not be true. You know, a lot factors into that. Coming out of the pandemic, retail sales have been strong. Retail vacancy rates have been dropping, both nationally and in Portland area. We survey about just under 7 million square feet of retail space annually. And, you know, it doesn't cover every little space, downtown Portland, downtown Westbrook, Old Port, but it gives us a good indication of where the wind is blowing in the retail sector. And our retail vacancy rate dropped about a percentage point in 2022, down to 4.3% roughly. And I think nationally in the last couple of years, they've gone from 20% in Q3 down to about the same level in the fours, you know, which is amazing really for a sector that was supposedly going to be left for dead. Several things that factor into that is nobody has produced much new retail space in the last 5 or 8 or 10 years, particularly not during the pandemic. And coming out of the pandemic, people had some pent up demand for, you know, plenty of extra money in their bank accounts, weren't spending on much other than their homes, home renovations, that sort of stuff, you know, pajamas to be on Zoom meetings with a jacket and a shirt up above. And we have found that people are back out in droves now, shopping, trying on clothes, going to restaurants, bars. And we saw, you know, a healthy consumer, you know, through you know, until the very end of last year where retail sales dropped off a little bit. Of course, we've just seen they pop back up at the beginning of this year. So amazingly resilient consumer in the face of rising interest rates and rising inflation, you know, which is amazing to me. So I would say that my main takeaway is that the retail sector is hot and should remain that way in the year ahead. I do think rising interest rates will have somewhat of a negative impact on, you know, refinancing, equity usage on home improvements and big sort of jobs, which could affect that some retail sectors, some retailers more than others.
I get often asked, you know, what's going on with commercial real estate, and it's hard to make an all-encompassing statement because there are different asset classes. And then even within asset classes, there are different segments. So Would you say when looking at retail, are there particular segments that are outperforming others?
Yeah, I would say that some of the older enclosed malls are still struggling, a bit more than strip centers or, it's become experiential in retail a little bit as well. We have an area in Portland called the Old Port where people come, they stay for the weekend, they go to dinner. We have a great food scene here, beer scene, and they can go on a whale watch, they can walk along the waterfront, historic district. And it's a good experience for people and retailers who gravitate towards those areas because it's a good experience to be in those areas as opposed to just driving to someplace, buying something and going back home. So, again, one other thing I would like to mention is we have seen some retail buildings taking to other uses because of the cost to build, a new structure. You have an older retail. We've seen a couple of them repositioned into office or medical office. And I think that's a trend that you're seeing in all around the country. Perfect example of that was Jetport Plaza here in South Portland near the airport. To go find a piece of land and put up a 100,000 square foot building with a parking field and go through all the approval process, a daunting task. In Portland, we had several big drugstore expansion and then Walgreens bought Rite Aid. And so we had 38,000 square feet of vacant Rite Aids in 2021. We're down to about 7,000 feet now. Again, we're seeing some of that stuff absorbed from one use like drugstore, 10, 12,000 feet into a multi-tenanted retail center or office. And I think that you'll see that continue. Frankly, retail lease rates have trended down a little bit, in the last few years. So I think it's made it a lot more appealing for retailers to expand. The Old Port in downtown Portland is sort of an exception of that, where they're holding rates a little bit higher. But the lower rates have been helpful as well. And again, you're seeing online retailers expand into bricks and mortar retail, which is another thing that's helping to drive down vacancy rate and keep the sector steady.
So you touched on the vacancy, which is still tight at sub 5%. You mentioned that rental rates are down a bit. How about on the investment sales side? How have you seen activity and where are you seeing in terms of maybe cap rates and price per square foot?
The price per square foots have been we've seen anywhere from $150 to $200 a square foot. Smaller standalone retail buildings that have some parking attached to them, like former 7-Elevens and that sort of stuff, have been snapped up by small restaurateurs. There's not been a lot of huge retail center sales. But again, I think the last couple of years have been pretty positive. So the cap rates have been a little higher than they have been on like medical office, but overall they've been pretty solid. Again, I think right now with our rising rate environment and inflation, there just haven't been enough sales to tell which way cap rates are going to go. But I would put cap rates on retail anywhere from 6 to 7.5%. And you can find some stuff out in other towns around Maine where it could push 8%.
We want to thank your firm, especially for being so instrumental in helping us do an in-person event up there at Rock Row last year. How are you seeing the development market right now? Are you seeing new retail centers coming online? Is there a development pipeline, or is it really more about repurposing older supply?
It's really more with the exception of Rock Row in the greater Portland area, and our first Costco in Maine is under construction in Scarborough. But with the exception of that, most of it has been repurposing of retail space. Rock Row has been hugely successful. The Market Basket out there, does huge numbers, Chick-fil-A, and they put an REI in there, which has been a real big draw. I personally, when I heard they were going there, I thought maybe it wasn't the best location for REI, but I shop there. I live off of Brighton Avenue in Portland, Deering Highland area, and it's quite active all the time. Every time I've been in that store, but they're also broke ground on 130,000 square foot medical office building there, and they plan to build apartments and an event center and a hotel and continue with retail. I did a smaller one like that in Scarborough where we had an old police fire department and we took the fire station and put in 3 tenants, Rosemont, Harborfish, 2 local institutions. and a small restaurant. And then I have a children's play place in the back, a stretch lab, a gym, and then they're building senior housing there. So, I mean, I think you're seeing more of those sorts of developments where it's a mixed use thing and not just a retail center. And Rock Row is a perfect example of that in Westbrook. Westbrook is a town that's open for business, easy to deal with. There's probably 1,500 or so to 2,000 apartments that are going up in Westbrook in the next couple of years on top of Rock Row. And they also built a urban hydroponic grow building, the first one in Maine. I've never even seen one anywhere, but it's a grow facility that's going to be on Main Street right in downtown Westbrook. It's, I think, 75,000 square feet. So they're going to grow vegetables for local stores, including Hannaford, right in the middle of Westbrook. And it's, you know, it's a difference is oftentimes the government and the leaders in a town. And Westbrook has a leadership that's very aggressive and willing to take risks and to be very beneficial and helpful to developers. A lot of these communities in around New England are sort of like, we don't want housing, we don't want apartments, but if you're not growing and having new opportunities for new residents, then you're going to stagnate and wind up with a less vibrant community.
You reference the Old Port and the experiential retail. Is there struggles in the kind of downtown retail segment there, or are they doing, or has office come back up in that market?
Portland's a little different than Boston, and it's a big, a lot of people come here even in winter now because hotels are very expensive in the summer. We have huge food scenes, so you could stay in a hotel in Portland on a weekend, this time of year for a couple $100 a night, and go to restaurants you really can't get into in the summer. But yes, we are seeing some of those catered to office tenants, lunch tenants, that sort of stuff struggle a bit, and we continue to see some office vacancy rises and going up in Portland, and some more space coming on the market as there's a hybrid model happening. So yes, that is probably we're seeing a little bit less because of our demand for tourist-driven retail, at least to Madewell this year. They opened up, I'm talking to them for 2.5 years. They opened down here in the Old Port. So we do have some of those nationals, which also help to draw people in. You'd look at like Freeport, for example, Freeport, Maine. Everyone thought it's an old retail discount retail town. A couple of breweries moved up there. There's Maine Beer Company, which makes Peeper and lunch and other things. That pizza place there. So there's that, people going in, attracted to that. And LL Bean just announced that they're going to spend $50 million on an expansion of their downtown flagship store. Again, another example of experiential retail, not just to have a retail strip center like a Kittery, which is a little more, less like Freeport's trying to go. Let's face facts. If you don't ski, which I do in the winter, and you don't do some other things, a lot of people have nothing else to do but to go out and walk around someplace. If you're out there, maybe have lunch and then maybe, then go to Madewell or someplace else, try a pair of jeans. So I do think it's something for people to do as well. So that's why I don't think retail bricks and mortar will ever, a few years ago, I said it wasn't baseball, that's the national pastime, it's shopping.
So I think many people within the commercial real estate industry kind of entered 2023 with a certain set of expectations. Now that we're 6 weeks into the new year, has there been any surprises?
It's always hard to tell which way the wind's blowing in January and February. I've had some activity from retailers. The retail sales snap back a little bit from their year-end slowdown. It's hard to go into a recession when you're at 500,000 jobs in a month like January. Incomes are up. Things definitely, I think, will slow a little bit in 2023. I think the cost to build is still going to be an issue. And I think the housing market, which I was president of the Maine Association of Realtors, I'm now president of Maine Listings, and we think we have like 2,400 homes for sale in Maine. When I was president going into 2019 for Maine Association of Realtors, I think we had almost 9,500 this time of year. Every home sold is a huge benefit to retail and home improvement stores and to contractors. So again, adding supply and the right supply of housing to our markets until we figure out a way to build more housing. It's even though rates are up, we're still seeing strong demand when the right price property hits the market. So it's really interesting to me. It's not a demand thing as much as a supply thing, even with rates the way they are. And I think rates have peaked residentially. Of course, now we have jobs report and retail sales, so maybe the Fed will continue to raise rates. But I think that at some point, after not doing anything for 10 years and then going so aggressively like they have, they're going to have to ease up a little bit on rate increases, and hopefully we'll wind up with a soft landing. That's my hope. But I mentioned the housing piece because commercial and residential, I've always believed, which is why I stay involved in volunteering on the residential side. They're lockstep. If you don't have a strong residential market, you're not going to have a strong commercial market. And if you don't have new apartments being put up, so these companies can't lure young people to work there because a lot of them aren't ready to settle down in their life yet. So you need that supply. And that is critical to people feeling wealth. Is you build your biggest wealth through your home, and we have, like Mass has, a lack of first-time home buyers because there's nothing at that price point. So we need to sort of focus on that as well, because without one being healthy, the other one, I don't believe, often is.
No, I think that's a great thought and piece of wisdom to kind of wrap up our conversation here. So are there any parting thoughts or anything that you're advising your clients as you look out towards the rest of the year?
I'm advising my clients to be proactive, to be flexible, to make sure you choose the right retailer. Look, if you have retail vacancy right now, there's an opportunity to lock in for good rates in a lot of places for a good amount of term. So I would be patient and make sure that you select the right tenant, because there's plenty of demand for retail space in most markets. With these cap rates and interest rates, the cap rates haven't probably adjusted enough for, it's kind of a little bit of a standoff in commercial real estate now. And so, but I think patience is the key in retail. We're coming into the season where retailers want to get up and running, for Memorial Day. If you find a good retail center or a good standalone retail building and you think it could be repurposed for something, I'd look long and hard at it. Probably a little stronger than office, certainly.
The way we wrap up pretty much all of our interviews, we ask the question, is there anything the New England CCIM chapter can do to help support professionals and firms like yours?
I'm a candidate to CCIM. I think you do a great job. You provide great information. We have a couple of CCIMs, several of them here, and all the information that you provide to us and the classes that you put on are world class. I do think those outreach things like we had at Rock Row last summer, terrific. It's a great organization, and we're proud to be affiliated.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that feedback. And Pete, thank you again for taking the time to chat with us today. And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. You can follow Pete on LinkedIn and through the Malone Commercial Brokers website. Links will be included in the description below. We have more great speakers coming to you throughout the year, so please like and subscribe the video. Keep an eye on this channel, and feel free to follow us on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Thank you for viewing.
Yeah, thank you. If I come to Portland, look me up.